Hey guys, and welcome to my review of Battlefield 1. It has now been a week since the game was officially released, and I have to say, I didn't have much time to play anything else. I'm honestly in love with the game, and I didn't play anything else, so bear with me. Now, you think that it's maybe a bad start and expect me to totally biased about the game, but be assured I'm unbiased as always and will tell it how it is. Now, first off, the following is based upon my personal experience with the game since the release, not including the trial, beta, and alpha stages. Reason simply being, I already made a preview based upon those, and so I will do this properly with the game in its current stage. And to give you an idea, I played 30 hours so far since the game was released 8 days ago, and I'm rank 30 at the moment. So I think I gathered enough hours to be able to give an objective review of the game. So I'm going through the single player campaign rather quickly. It is short and sweet. Now a lot of people I heard complain about the shortness and the over the top stories with Rambo-like soldiers killing hundreds of enemies, and I would agree. If it wasn't for one little detail, well maybe two. First, those war stories are exactly that. Stories. They are always stories given by someone to someone else. So, I mean, imagine if your grandfather would, more likely about World War II, for example, would tell you a story about him being in Normandy fighting the Nazis. Now, imagine what you will see in your mind, and that's what happens here with these war stories. These war stories aren't meant to be historically accurate or even real. They are supposed to impress someone, coupled with the vivid imagination of the listener or listeners who weren't there but just imagined what happened or how it would have happened. So with that taken into account, and by the way, in the second war story, the hero actually indicates that all he told to you was made up. So let's move on. I agree that the war stories could have been a bit longer, especially after the first one, not including the prologue, of course. I mean, the first war story was Through Mud and Blood. It was 1.5 hours. It was perfect. On the other hand, I like that they weren't too long. A lot of times when the campaign in a game becomes too long, just for the sake of being long, it's getting uninteresting and it becomes a chore to continue. Now, the war stories don't do that, and I'm glad about that. I care enough for what happens without losing the care somewhere down the line. With that being said, the last war story I didn't like at all, and I just couldn't care about it. It was by far the worst and most boring of the war stories, and I really wish they would have done it differently. I mean, it's not only because it portrays the Ottomans like monsters, but because of the actual gameplay aspect of it. I mean, it was just lazy, in my opinion. And with that being said, the fascinating and important part of the game is, of course, the multiplayer. And I have to say, I love it. Well, I love Operations. Operations are the single greatest addition to the franchise, and I think it adds a lot of the value and replayability to the game. But it is a bit of a double-edged sword, because while they added one of the best multiplayer FPS modes ever, they also ruined all the other game modes for me. When I tried to play Rush and Conquest and Domination, and I was bored to death. They just didn't do it for me anymore. So I basically ended up just playing Operations. And while praising the mode is an easy thing to do, there's also some things to criticize about it. First off, I'd like a quick join operation function which lets you join any operation with a free slot. And maybe even add some filters like I want to attack, defend or something. I don't know why, but I feel like I'm a lot more on the defending side than on the attacking one. Of course, this is most likely because people are switching sides at the beginning of the round, or more probably because people are leaving the game by losing on the defending side. And this brings me to another point. I don't want to join an operation that is on the last map unless I choose so. Seriously, now this mainly concerns the desert maps, where I'm always playing Feo Fortress, and I don't even remember having played Suez or the other map, Sinai, since its release. It's always Feo Fortress, and of course always on the defending side. So with that being said, let's move on with some other issues in operations. The effing BMOs. I don't even know how to spell that. BMOs. Now, to be fair, they are not bad, and I'm not against them per se, but I think they aren't deployed very well right now. It is really frustrating as a defender when you're getting steamrolled across a map and only have the last sector left, and finally you win one round just to see that big fat airship fly over your head and to finish you off in a couple of minutes. Hell, sometimes you lose the last sector in a couple of a minute. And this simply shouldn't happen. The attacking team that just steamrolled over 5 sectors or so does not need a behemoth to conquer the last segment of the map. I would even go as far to say maybe it is the defender that should get a behemoth every once in a while instead. If you're losing a sector, if you're losing sector after sector to a superior team, you wish there would be some equalizer to help you out. Not the contrary, where you always know that the moment you win one, you'll get raped afterwards as a reward. So I think this needs a major overhaul as to when the behemoths are deployed and when not. For example, I would only have them deployed when the attacking team wasn't able to conquer at least 50% of the sectors of a map or something like that. Also, I'd like to be more vehicles in operations on both sides. It seems like there's only ever one or maximum 2 tanks on the battlefield, even with 64 players. I wish for a bit more here. I mean, I enjoyed Infantry Combat, but yeah, it is Battlefield after all. Just something to think about it. Now let's move on. Tanks. Now, tanks overall are pretty much okay, but it can happen that on some maps, someone camps with a tank on a remote spot, inaccessible for the other team, and simply spawn rapes. And yes, it's possible. I've seen and felt it. There are several mobs which allow for the behavior where a tank can simply stay on the same spot, and if needs be, just someone repairs him or he jumps out, repairs himself, because nobody can get close to him. So the only thing that can come close are planes, which are usually destroyed long before that. But I've seen tanks for entire rounds just stay in one spot, shooting at the other team, killing dozens and dozens and dozens of people without ever being close to danger. So now I'm not saying nerf the tanks, but not necessarily, but give the opposing team the possibility to go and destroy the tank somehow. I don't know how, but they have to. I mean, I know it's tricky one. I honestly wouldn't want to be in the shoes of the devs for stuff like that, but that shouldn't be possible. Also, speaking of tanks, I think the heavy tank is clearly too powerful, or I think possibly it's people exploiting something. I'm not sure, but it seems like sometimes there are heavy tanks which, I'm not talking heavy tanks staying back and something like that, no. Sometimes you see heavy tanks in the middle of the enemy getting pounded by AT weaponry and never getting disabled. And it seems almost like there is someone in the inside that keeps repairing the tank. So I don't know if you know anything about that, but let me know, please. But it really looks like there is a glitch somehow or an exploit that lets people repair the tank from inside or somewhere, whatever. I mean, I see the tanks getting fired at by 5-6 people with AT grenades and rockets and whatnot, and the tank just keeps moving and moving, not even getting disabled. So there's something wrong about that. But of course that only happens every now and then, so luckily it seems if it was a glitch that not too many know about it yet. So, but let me know if you know about that. Now let's move on to the classes. While I'm almost exclusively playing Medic and I have fallen quite in love with it, I sometimes of course switch classes to fill a role that is required. And to be honest, I found them all equally fun and balanced in general. I think it's more often the player behind the role that may make it appear unbalanced than anything the class has to offer itself. I mean, for a good example is a Scout. Scout isn't unbalanced just because some pro player can snipe the living shit out of someone over half the map. That's another point. People were complaining about Scouts. Now yes, a lot of people, the usual suspect, who play the Scouts in an entirely antisocial manner by simply laying in their tent far in the back of the map, trying to kill some faraway small targets. But here's the thing though, most of them are just utterly useless at it, and seriously, for the amount of complaining I see about Scouts, I get killed very little by them. I mean, if you move quickly and unpredictable and keep your head down, you are the target for them, period. And sure, I'm not saying you aren't getting killed by one or every now and then, but I get far more often killed by someone up close. But like I said, I find all the classes enjoyable, but medics rock the most in my opinion, but that is purely a subjective matter of my personal playstyle and not because I find medics to be too powerful compared to the rest. But to sum it up, because this is getting rather lengthy, all in all I enjoy the game and I can only recommend it to anyone who likes first person shooters, but also keep in mind that this isn't a historical accurate game and shouldn't be criticized for it. Because a lot of times I see like, yeah, it's not very realistic and there weren't so many automatic weapons and this and that and tanks and whatever. And it's all correct. I mean, it's correct if the game was being plugged as a realistic game. It's not. Battlefield is and always was, and I hope always will be, a multiplayer game. It's not an historical in a realistic game. It was never that. I mean, I remember the first Battlefield. I'm not even gonna talk about the game before Battlefield. I don't even remember the name. It's Strike something. It was never in none of the, I don't know, 14 Battlefield games in total. None of them were ever realistic or ever meant to be realistic. So this is really a moot point at this moment. It is a clearly for fun build and not for realism. And I mean, otherwise you would all run through the game with single bolt rifles, and yeah, it would be really seriously. I don't want to play a realistic World War One game. That would be a very sad affair, I think. So just keep that in mind. If you're going to judge the game, judge it based on the fact that it's a multiplayer game that is most and for all meant to be fun and nothing else. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed my review, and yeah, like I said, as such, it does an excellent job, the game, and I can't wait to get back on the battlefield. See you there, Commander.